My name is Darius Wallace, and I'm an actor, author, filmmaker, and crazier. Because anytime one man can choose multiple professions where you reject it 99.9% of the time, that man is butt naked out of his mind. A friend of mine is a sculptor, and he takes these stones and he turns them into beautiful works of art. I said, man, how do you do that? How do you take these stones and turn them into beautiful works of art? He said, well, Darius, what would you do if you could take any of my stones and turn them into art? I said, well, I'm an actor. I take the stone, dress it up in a costume, put it on the stage, and let it be what it is. I said, but what do you do to turn these stones into beautiful works of art? He said, Darius, it's my belief that the beautiful work of art is already within the stone. That all I have to do is chisel away at what's unnecessary, smooth out the rough edges, straighten out the crooked lines, and I cultivate the stone into the beautiful work of art it was always meant to be. Well, 20 years ago, I was the stone. 20 years ago, I was depressed. 20 years ago, I lost my will to live. It all happened when I was driving down the street in Los Angeles, California, called Warring Street. But I thought the street sign said Warning Street, and boom, I was on the flat. Now, this is before the age when everybody had cell phones, so I got help to push the car to the garage, and I got on the payphone, and I called my mother because I really needed help. Now, even though I was a struggling actor who couldn't afford to get his tire fixed, the very next day I was going to be meeting with one of the top casting directors in LA. And when I told my mother this, she said, Darius, I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you. Now I can rest. That night I pre-celebrated with the Shapiro's beer, a joint, and a great time with my girl. The very next day was a quiet, calm, cloudy day. The phone rang. Intuitively, I knew it was from home. Hello? Darius? It was my father. Pat passed. My mother had been battling breast cancer, and that morning, she died. Clouds cried, causing confusion because she was gone. It was sunny LA, but that day it rained, and it rained, and it rained. Tears were streaming down the face of the skies because my mother was an angel. I went on to meet with this casting director. I mustered up enough courage to do a short performance for him. He was moved that I would come to meet with him even though my mother passed away that morning, and he said, you're going to work in this town. He picked up the phone and called other casting directors and told them I would be meeting with them for some potential casting in television when I came back from my mother's funeral. He graciously gave his condolences and sent me off. I flew here to Memphis, and I was surrounded by friends, family who would all come to Memphis to celebrate my mother's life and to see her off to her home going. I flew back to LA, but I was no longer the me I knew. I was a weaker me, a broken me who grew sadder and lonelier by the day. I did not work in LA like the casting director said I would because I would not get out of bed. And when I did, it seemed like the whole world turned upside down. I lost everything. I lost my apartment, lost my car, lost my girl. I lost my esteem. But a beacon of light called from LA in the form of a theater festival, and I took a bus straight across the country to a beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn where I was surrounded by great actors, great directors, great writers, and also a great amount of drugs, and I participated. And one day, after drinking some whiskey, snorting some coke, smoking some weed mixed with heroin, I found myself in humiliation on the toilet. And as I was sitting there, I would go in and out of consciousness, and I remember various people passing me by almost as if I wasn't even there. I could have died for all they cared. Not only did I lose my esteem, but in that moment, I lost my dignity. I lost my will to live. I was the stone. And I did to myself what I said I would do to a stone. I dressed myself up. I decided one day that I would give up acting and I would be homeless. I actually found myself in the streets of Brooklyn pushing a cart to pick up cans, to get cash, not the $600 a week I was hoping for, but $20 a week. And I remember sitting on a bench in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, and across the way I could see Spike Lee's 40 Acres and a Mule. And I remember thinking to myself, I never thought that I would end up homeless. I never thought that I would be pushing a cart down the streets of Brooklyn. I never thought that I would be battling addiction, but there I was. I always thought I would be in a Spike Lee movie by now. I always thought I would be on television or in theater around the country. But here I was, broke, broken, hungry, homeless, sad, stuck. But according to statistics, I'm not alone. As a matter of fact, they say America, 70% of America is more unhappy than she's ever been, in spite of comforts. And I believe it's because it's this overwhelming feeling of being stuck in your circumstances, stuck in situations where you may be saying to yourself, like I did, I never thought that I would end up in the career that I'm in right now. I never thought that I would end up dealing with all these different crazy circumstances. I always thought I would be living my dreams by now. Well, I want you to know that there's something phenomenal about how fire comes into the world. You strike a match and there's a spark. And you strike it again, and sometimes you have to strike it again and again and again until that spark becomes a flame. And that flame, when cultivated, becomes fire. And fire, when it's creatively controlled, becomes energy that lights up the whole world. When I was sitting on that bench, I remembered my father shared something with me. He planted a spark of inspiration in me that I now plant inside you, where he said, Darius, all things lost can be regained. And we, like the divine, can say, be, and it is. That word of inspiration gave me a little taste of joy, and I sought after more words of inspiration, and I learned that I was very inspired by words. I would even write words of inspiration like, these wings, my heart, these wings that soar across the sky, these wings, I am the breath beneath the butterfly, these wings, this grace that glides along the wind, these wings that make rejected stones ascend, these wings, fresh faith, I was the doubting door, I am no more, but am that stone, that with the Christ pristine angels adore, these wings, you hear the sound that sings and rings the bells beneath bathing streams, baptized in crystal fire, never again to live beneath the higher life, letting loose like lightning, looking lethal, luring little leaves, lubricating love letters launched from the Lord. That inspiration led me to what I was inspired by most, which was to start acting again. And there were several things that happened to me that helped me cultivate that inspiration to recreate my life. And I'll share them with you. There was first finding that inspiration that gives you that little taste of joy. And then I found myself meditating on it. You know, I believe that thoughts are things and that we are what we think about all day long. And then I used visualization. I actually, on those park benches, began to visualize myself coming out of homelessness. I began to visualize myself acting on stages all across the country. I visualized myself in television and in film. And then I actually found myself doing what the sculptor did to the stone. I chiseled away at what was unnecessary, all the negative self-talk, the negative associations, the addictions. I straightened out the crooked lines by working on the thing that I loved, and most importantly, I smoothed off the rough edges by learning to love myself. And I went from homeless to sleeping in the backseat of a car. But then I went from sleeping in the backseat of a car to a couch, and you can rent couches in New York, by the way, and then from a couch to a room, and a room to an apartment to a house where I now live and support a family of 5 with what I'm inspired by. My question for you is what are you inspired by? What gives you that little taste of joy? Because when you find that, you'll realize you are not stuck. You are not stuck because you are amazing. You are miraculous. You are magnificently made. You are not stuck. You are not stuck because today is not the end of the story and tomorrow is a new chapter. You are not stuck. You are not stuck because if you can imagine it, you can be it. You are not stuck because you are the fire. You are the flame. You are the spark. You are that. You are. Thank you. Thank you.